Hi, this is Dan Lehman from Growmo.co, and today we're going to be talking about ActiveCampaign's integrations. One of the reasons that people love ActiveCampaign is how easy they make it to be able to integrate to other applications. To date, ActiveCampaign has over 850 different applications they integrate to, which is practically unheard of. Now, before we get into the different types of integrations that they have to offer, I want to do a high-level overview of what exactly is an integration. So when we talk about marketing automation platforms like ActiveCampaign, we think about this kind of existing at the center of your universe as a small business owner or as a marketer. And so when you have ActiveCampaign, that helps you market to your customers, to your new prospects, but that doesn't always give you the full picture. So you might have an e-commerce platform like Shopify. This gives you data about purchase history and things that don't actually live inside of ActiveCampaign. Another example might be if you're a larger organization and you have sales reps that you're working with, then Salesforce might be a tool or another CRM that you're working with as well that has existing customer data. Maybe you've been building funnels and specialized landing pages in a tool like ClickFunnels, and you definitely want to be able to send that information on through ActiveCampaign to market to them. And a final example would be you want to be able to have conversion tracking in Google Analytics when you have people coming from a marketing campaign and they click through to your website. So these are all really practical examples of what we see marketers doing, and we call this their MarTech stack, the different tools in which they operate to be able to understand their customer holistically. Now, as you can imagine, if you don't have integrations between these, your life becomes a lot more complicated. So you might not have all of the data that you need, and you can't really map out a full customer's journey. This becomes difficult. And so sometimes as a solution, you'll find organizations where they have to go to one tool, export a CSV file that lives locally on your computer, and then you're going to take that, manually import it. I've seen plenty of places where it's an intern's job to do that multiple times a week, which becomes a little bit complicated, as you can imagine. The ideal experience would be these are fully integrated, where we have the data coming from each of these tools and we're able to effectively market to them. So when it comes to ActiveCampaign, there's several different types of integrations that they have that we'll cover. The first one, and probably the most basic, is that they have a special import tool baked within, which is kind of a wizard setup. So you think about it, if you have a list of contacts that you want to be able to import, if it's just a one-off thing, you go to one trade show, you want to be able to import them, you could just import a single CSV file, no problem. But sometimes you want to be able to have a listener attached to this. So if I have a Google spreadsheet and I want to be able to continuously add new contacts to this, maybe it's coming from a different tool that dumps a bunch of contacts here, then we can have a listener attached to it where maybe every half hour it detects, are there any new records for this? And if so, then we're going to import them into the system. From within ActiveCampaign, I can click in my contacts area. That takes me here, and I've got the ability to import a single file, which will just do it in this one point in time from my computer. Or I could choose any of these integrations. So one of those would be Google Spreadsheets. It'll click you through a wizard to be able to select which spreadsheet that you want, and it'll eventually run that job to be able to import those on a regular basis. That's a really simple kind of integration, but it's convenient, especially if you have a data source where you just need to check every once in a while and be able to add those contacts. Another type of integration are native integrations. This is a little bit of a marketing term that gets tossed around, and just to provide some clarity, essentially this means that ActiveCampaign's own internal developer team has built these integrations. Now, what this means for you is that sometimes an integration might break, and that could be because they added a new feature. Maybe for Dropbox, they add a new feature that breaks the integration. And the great part is that ActiveCampaign is going to be able to support that integration. So you have a problem, you go straight to them, they'll be able to fix it. This is a convenient way to be able to have integrations that are directly supported. Now, that being said, a subset of these integrations are what they call their deep data integrations. You can see there's just a few of them here. These can be accessed if you go to the settings area, which is down in the corner here, and we click on integrations and add an integration. These integrations you can connect to, and again, it's pretty simple. Shopify, you can click on it, you put in your Shopify URL, and then there's a couple more configuration settings for it. But what this allows to do is, rather than some of the more basic integrations where we're just pulling over some contacts and we've got some, segmentation data for it, what this allows us to do is have specialized custom actions that we can run on. In the case of Shopify, two common actions would be cart abandonment. So if someone adds a product to their cart and then they just leave the website, you'll want to be able to market and follow up with them because there's usually high engagement rates for that. Another use case would be when someone makes a purchase, then right away you want to be able to follow up with that, or perhaps in a while you want to be able to send some targeted offers based off of the purchase that they made. Then you're able to have these deeper activities that you can do with it, which is why they call them these deep data integrations. It's really nice because other integrations that they have really rely on their tag ecosystem. You have to have a tag that identifies them as this type of a customer. But because of this, you have access to some additional data points, additional triggers. Now, in addition to those native integrations and the deep data integrations, we also have, if we just go to their public website, they'll talk about their apps. And their apps are really just all of their integrations that they have, both native and also third party. And what third party means is these integrations are going to operate very similar to the native integrations. It just means that instead of ActiveCampaign actually developing the integration, they rely on the other vendor to be able to create it. So like lead pages as an example, rather than ActiveCampaign creating it, they rely on the lead pages team to create the integration. Does that mean anything different for you? Not a whole lot in all reality. Potentially lead pages, if ActiveCampaign created a new feature and that broke the integration, then you might need to go to lead pages to help that. But ActiveCampaign support is really good. And so most of the time, honestly, even if you have a question about a third-party integration, they're pretty quick to help on that. So I'm not too concerned about that. You can think of really any of the integrations that you can find here as pretty solidly done because they have a set of requirements that they have to go through to be listed here. So that's where you get to this total of about 850 different applications. And if we're inside of ActiveCampaign, we have a different area here. It's again down in the corner here, which we can click on apps. And we're able to see a number of different categories of apps. Again, when you have close to 1,000 of these, it makes it helpful that you can categorize and be able to search this way. Now, one thing that's interesting about this is that sometimes when you get more into enterprise software, integrations themselves actually cost money. Like you have to pay a license fee to be able to use this integration. That's really not the case, I think, maybe for all of these, but definitely the majority of these integrations where, if you think about it, most of these tools you actually pay a subscription for. Not for ones like Google Sheets necessarily, but like if you have a Calendly subscription you're already paying for, it's in the best interest of both Calendly and ActiveCampaign to create an integration, because in SaaS we talk about this being sticky. If all of your tools are really well integrated, then it becomes much more difficult for you to be able to leave any of those vendors. And so it's really just in everybody's best self-interest that they make these integrations available. Really, this is easy to be able to configure. You find the application you want, you click on it, you maybe put in a couple configuration settings, and you're off to the races. So no big implementation, no additional cost for these, really convenient. Now, sometimes you find yourself in a scenario where you don't care for the functionality that they provide in these out-of-the-box integrations. Maybe you have some custom fields or additional data that's not being ported over in the integration, and so you want to be able to have more control over how the integration works. And so that's where tools like Integromat or Zapier come into play, where they're essentially a tool that they build connectors. And with the connectors, you can create the business logic that goes between different integration points. So they've got one for ActiveCampaign, then they have hundreds of other integration connectors that you can utilize. I'd say it's not for the totally faint of heart. If you're just a beginner in this, then this might be a little bit more complicated, but it is a drag and drop configurable tool. You don't typically have to do a lot of code for these products. So it gives you another option if you need more granular control as you're setting up integrations. And then, of course, another option is to be able to utilize an API. Again, for the majority of people, you're not going to have to worry about APIs. This is more if you have a custom application and you want to be able to have your own integration between your tool that you're building and ActiveCampaign. This is where you can utilize their open API. So really convenient for developers. They've got great documentation, and we'll actually do a follow-up video where we dig into some examples. So if you are more technically minded, we'll focus on APIs a little bit later. And then one important thing to talk about when it comes to integrations is just pricing. So we already talked about, for the most part, the integrations themselves don't charge any money. You're just paying the licensing fees for either of those tools. But it's important to know, sometimes when you're choosing a marketing automation tool, they try to upcharge you, so you have to pay for one of their really expensive plans to be able to utilize the integrations. The nice part about ActiveCampaign is that if you see on their Lite, which is their lowest pricing plan, is that they make available those 850 integrations. And that's pretty awesome because you can be paying as little as $9 a month and get access to that ecosystem. And then they've got automation recipes, which is kind of like the logic that exists behind that. So again, ActiveCampaign wants you to be able to have the best experience. They make that available even at their cheapest plans. One part that I love, if you're thinking, if you don't actually have ActiveCampaign yet and you're evaluating a couple different systems, first of all, you can sign up for a trial in the link below. That's just a way to be able to help support the channel. I'd appreciate it if you do. If not, no worries. But during your trial process, you can actually tap into those integrations right away, which is kind of cool. You don't have to be a paid customer and then find out, oh, this integration doesn't work the way I want it to, and then you're out your money. Instead, in your 2-week trial, you can actually set up the integration and be good to go. For most people, the native and third-party integrations, that's what makes up that 850 different integrations, is really going to cover most of your use cases. Now, you might be using some kind of obscure system where you need to be able to utilize the API or be able to use Zapier or Integromat, and that's fine too. But honestly, they've got a bigger integration ecosystem than just about anybody. The other cool part is that this is free to you, again, aside from any licensing that you pay for that other product. And so, really great that you don't have to pay an additional $50 a month on top of everything else. And then this is available to you during the trial period, as well as the lowest tiered plans for ActiveCampaign. So you don't have to shell out a bunch of extra cash to be able to use the integrations. And really, at the end of the day, they're easy to activate. We didn't go into a whole lot of examples of clicking through and setting up each one because they're all just a little bit different, but really it's just a couple of steps to be able to get there. So if you have any questions about what an individual integration looks like, happy to answer that as well. So I want to thank you for watching this video on ActiveCampaign integrations. If you have questions about marketing automation or more broadly how to grow and scale your business, happy to answer questions. Reach out over at our website, growmo.co. Thanks and have a great day.